So with the release of the C80 coming out, it has made the C70 a very cheap and very affordable. So I just want to briefly go over my thoughts on this compared to this and why in 2025 there's no excuse not to be going and getting a C70. So I'm not here to try to get anyone to spend money or anything. Yes, I'm encouraging you to spend more money on new gear. Yes, or used gear is what we're really going to go after here. I'm going to tell you how this kind of transformed my wedding video business compared to this, which is a Canon R6 Mark II that I was using for a long time. About a year ago, I spent the money on the C70, not knowing how much I would actually love it and how much it would help doing wedding videos. So again, you hear all these people on TV, it doesn't matter what gear you have, it's how well you shoot. Yes, that is true. But this C70 has just made my life so much easier to a point I don't think I could ever go back to a mirrorless camera. So I'm going to give you kind of my unbiased opinion on the differences between the mirrorless cameras and the Canon C70. I just recently got a C80 as well, so I put out a video a little while back on the differences between the C70 and the C80. But I mean, right now in 2025, you cannot go wrong with the C70. It's going to be a camera that is still going to hold its value, and it holds its weight in gold, and it's going to, I think, for a very long time. I still use this on the wedding day. If you go look at my recent films, I've had the C70 and the C80. Half of my day is still filmed with this C70, and then these R6 Mark IIs, I have 3 of them. They're my tripod cams that get the ceremony and the speeches and everything. So I'm going to go over a couple of things of why I think right now in the beginning of 2025 is the best time to go get a C70 and the best time to upgrade. So first things first, probably the main reason why most people have not upgraded to the C70 from like an R6, an R5, R6 Mark II, any of the mirrorless cameras from Canon is probably the price. With the C80 coming out, now is literally the cheapest I think you're ever going to see a C70. I see them posted all the time for $3,100, $3,200. I saw one posted for $2,500 the other day, and of course it went really quick, but around $3,000 is what you can get this for, and that is, let me tell you, a steal. So much of a steal that when I went to buy my C80, I almost just bought 2 more of these instead. And was just going to roll with 3 of these for tripods and everything. But you can watch my video on the C80 on why I spent the money on that, because it truly is worth it. But so the price I paid for these R6 Mark IIs when they were brand new was about $2,500. I mean, for $500 more now that you can get a C70, 1,000% worth it. I think you'd be stupid not to spend a little bit of extra money on one of these. Like I said, let's get into the price real quick and what you should probably look for in one of these cameras. When you're going and buying one used, I really wouldn't worry about the amount of hours on it. I don't think anyone's ever maxed out the hours on one of these things. And I did hear and I forget who it was, I did hear from somebody a while ago that you can put up to 10,000 hours on the sensor of these cameras. And I don't think anyone's even come close to reaching that on the C300 to C70. So, you know, I'd probably try to stay below 500 hours, but it is really hard to find one over 500 hours. I really wouldn't worry about that so much as does it look like it was taken care of? Does it look like it was, is it dirty? If you look in some of these buttons, I've seen some people's cameras, especially in this on-off switch right here, there's like dirt caked up in it. Maybe find one cleaner. Make sure all the ports and everything work. The main thing that you want to look for a used C70 is this screen. And ask the last owner, is it wobbly? Because these screens weren't the best. They become very loose. This one that I have is a good screen. I don't know if it was ever replaced or not. I did buy this used. It had 50 hours on it at the time. And it was in great condition. So have someone send you some pretty detailed pictures. As long as it looks like it's in a great condition, it has no repairs. I think you can run the serial number in the Canon's website just to make sure it had no repairs, no drops. I think you're going to be good to go. I really wouldn't worry about the hours on them. Obviously, find one with the least amount as possible. And I see a lot of people posting them with the focal reducer as well for just over $3,000. And if you find that, get that as well. I did have one on this, so I could use my my EF24 to 70, and it gave more an extra stop of light, almost an extra stop of light, and it gave that full frame field of view, So that was they are really nice. It's just not for me. I like the RF glass right on it, or my absolute favorite lens that I used on this C70 and I still use is the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8. Absolutely, positively love that lens. It is basically glued onto this camera and does not come off. I love that lens. The autofocus is decent, but we'll get into the autofocus here in a minute. So I'm going to get into kind of the more technical things, and a lot of these are my opinions. I will give you some factual things on why I think the C70 is better than shooting with mirrorless for weddings. The main thing that you're really going to notice shooting between the two is all the like cinema grade features that the C70 has. Having everything that you need on a dedicated button is just absolutely amazing. Having the focus peaking on a dedicated button, the false color, turning the autofocus on and off without having to touch the screen. I can control everything that I need in the camera from a click of the button without ever looking down at my screen, and it is really, really nice. If you use a mirrorless camera and you got to go change your frame rate, or you want to turn focus peaking on and off, you actually have to go into the menu and click a couple of buttons. It takes some time. It's you know, not that big of a deal, but compared to just being able to single click press a button, it is a big deal. Until you use the C70, you don't truly understand. The next main thing about the C70 is built-in NDs. If there's nothing else you care about, built-in NDs, built-in NDs, built-in NDs. It's the #1 time saver, I think. Just what finally like broke the straw that broke the camel's back for me on a wedding day was there was one wedding a little while back last year where we kept going indoors, outdoors. The bride wanted some shots indoors and then come back in because it was hot out. So just we were going back and forth. I kept having to screw my ND filter on and off, on and off, on and off. And it was just, it's very, if you've done it, it's very irritating. Even with the new Polar Pro Magna Lock or whatever they call those ones that are supposed to be quicker, it's still not quicker than pressing a single button. I would spend $1,000 for built-in NDs in a mirrorless camera. I really would. And I know you can get those Metabones EF adapters, RF to EF adapters with the variable ND that's in it, and I do have those for my R6s for the tripod cams. But then you're limited to EF glass, which is great glass. But just having the built-in NDs is the most amazing thing because I like to use a lot of black mist filters too. So I screw in the black mist, leave it on my lens all day long, and I don't have to worry about changing the ND filters. So trust me, when you finally go and use them, you'll understand. So one of the things, I guess it's like your own opinion on what you like for the ergonomics of these two cameras. This part's totally going to be up to you. So sometimes, you know, you can see the difference in the size of these two cameras. Obviously, we all know that the C70 is much bigger. I shoot handheld, so the C70 feels a lot better for me. I like the weight. It takes out the micro jitters. On the C80 that I'm recording here has a I have another monitor because both of the screens on these things, they suck. They're very small. But I like the size of it. I like how big it is. I like that it still feels like a mirrorless camera, so it has like a grip to it. Would a box modular design be a little bit better? Maybe. I don't know. But comparing these two, I shot this handheld in the past too, and it just always felt too small to me. Like, it felt too small for my hands. Just kind of holding, running, and gunning. But sometimes that was nice too. Sometimes that wasn't the worst thing because, you know, after you're holding this for 10 or 12 hours, it does start to get a little heavy. So if you are shooting on a gimbal, this is much nicer on a gimbal. The mirrorless cameras, just the weight of them and everything feel a lot nicer. They're easier to balance. This doesn't have a hard time balancing on an RS2 or a RS3 or 4 Pro. But it's big, it is heavy on there. As far as the ergonomic design and the shape of it and the size, it just depends on what you like. I'm not gonna give a point to either one of these on that factor. So for wedding videos, I don't think the frame rate difference between these two really matters. The C70 can shoot at 120 frames a second in 4K. The max this R6 can do is 60 frames a second in 4K, or you have to stop down to 1080p to get 120, I believe. Again, I've never used it on a wedding day. Some people do for like certain shots. If you want to, cool. It was never for me. So that might be a reason for somebody. The bigger factor, though, between these two is the frame rate and the codec between the two. So the mirrorless cameras shoot in an H.265 MP4 container in IPB. And that's pretty much, if you want to shoot in log 3, that's pretty much all you're limited to. So the codecs really aren't that great in this. I mean, it's okay. In the C70, it's nice. I can shoot in XAVC. I can shoot in an intraframe or an interframe. I can also shoot in RAW. So there's a lot more flexibility for the codecs. And until you, again, it's one of those things, until you use it, you don't quite understand how nice it is. Another thing being with that is when it is hot out, these mirrorless cameras, especially the R5, this one not so bad. The R6 Mark II gives me about 40-45 minutes before it overheats in 60 frames a second in 4K. The R5, it's a lot less than that. And the original R6, I was only getting maybe 25 minutes and 60 frames a second on a warm day. The C70 has never overheated, and I don't believe it can overheat. It has a built-in dedicated fan right inside the back, which is why the camera is the size that it is. You can shoot 120 frames, 60 frames, whatever, in RAW, in a compressed format, anything, and never overheat. The downside of that is the C70 is not water and weather sealed like these mirrorless cameras. So if it starts to rain outside or something, I do always keep a bag to throw over the C70 if the weather's looking iffy. You know, on the R6s, obviously you don't want to soak them, but they are weather sealed along with the RF lenses. So if that matters to you, you know, maybe a mirrorless camera is the way to go. So if I do anything that is involving water, if I go and do some traveling wedding, or if I taking this, and I have someone who wants me to do white water rafting, record it as part of their wedding. I will not be taking this. I will be taking this, because it's the cheaper option, and it's a little bit more weather sealed in case it gets wet. So the other main thing that I will tell you between the two of these that is going to make the C70 well worth the money, even if, you know, I know these R6 Mark IIs you can find for about $2,000 now, so this is probably $1,000 over the R6 Mark II, or you know, I mean, this is barely more than a used R5 now. But the dynamic range of the C70 is, in short, absolutely amazing. I think it's even better than the dynamic range on the C80. Until you've edited video with the C70 and the R6, I've done a lot of testing. Again, I have a video about the dynamic range of these cameras. It is absolutely, positively amazing and well worth it. We get in a lot of environments and weddings. We don't get to set up perfect lighting. We don't have a light here, a light here, a light here, a light there. So we can't set up this really nice light. So what is nice about this is I can mostly get my lighting right and still be able to pull and push in DaVinci or your whatever editing program you use to still bring back your highlights or bring up your shadows. And it's absolutely amazing for it. So the R6, the R5, I think they claim about 11.5 to 12 stops of dynamic range. It's okay. There's a couple of times where I'm in a hotel room with the sun beating through the window, but the rest of the room is dark. And, you know, you got to expose for one or the other with these very well, and you're not getting back whatever you didn't expose for. So the C70 is nice because you don't have to worry about that so much. Get your exposure right the way you want it, and you should still be able, the dynamic range is good enough. You still should be able to get those highlights and those shadows back. So the C70 claims 16 stops of dynamic range. I don't believe it's quite 16 stops, but it's pretty damn close. So as far as the sensors go between the two, we know that the C70's got a Super 35 sensor, and the R5, the R6, the R6 Mark II, any of those mirrorless, most of these have a full frame sensor. I prefer a full frame sensor, which is why I got this C80. It's got a full frame sensor. It's got a better shallow depth of field. Again, you can watch. I have another video all about the sensor between the full frame and the Super 35 sensor. I don't hate this Super 35 sensor. This DJO sensor that has this great dynamic range is great. The crop factor is about 1.6. which kind of sucks, which is why I use the Sigma 18-35 to give me more of a wider view. But I will say, in short, without going too much into it, the sensor from this C70 for video is worlds better than the sensor that's in these mirrorless cameras. However, in these mirrorless cameras, you are getting that full frame field of view, and in the shallow depth of field, and a little bit more sharpness. In the C70, if no one's shot with this before, it's a little bit more of a softer image from that DJO sensor. So it's got that filmic look to it. You're definitely going to get a sharper picture out of the R6 Mark II and the R5 than you will from this. But again, it's, I like the look that comes out of this, that soft, more filmy look anyways. So again, another factor between the two. If you want that sharper, more detailed look, maybe sticking with a mirrorless is for you. One of the things that might not matter for everybody, it kind of mattered for me. If you're shooting on a gimbal, it probably definitely won't matter, is XLR, having the extra cinema grade features to this. So like XLR inputs, even though they're mini XLR. I have my shotgun mic. I have the Sennheiser MKE 600 that I like to use, that has really, really nice sound to it, and it's an XLR. So being able to put that on the C70 or the C80 is really nice compared to, I use the Rode NTG. It's just a 3.5 millimeter little shotgun mic, and I have a Deity D3 Pro that I've used for years. And both of those little shotgun mics, they sounded great on the R6. They were, until you use microphones like the Sennheiser with the XLR, you don't quite understand how good it is and how much of an upgrade it is. I think the audio that comes through the XLR into the C70 with this shotgun mic that I have does sound a lot better than just the little shotgun mics that you can put on these. They still sound great. And the other really nice thing about this that I use all the time is shooting in XF-AVC. I have 4 tracks of audio that I can use. So my first 2 tracks, I have a shotgun mic. My second 2 tracks, I have my Rode Wireless Pro little lavalier mics. So I have all of that audio coming in. Or the last 2 tracks I also use for just the scratch audio from the camera, the 2 little audio. In a mirrorless camera, you have whatever you plug into here is what you're getting. If it peaks, it peaks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So just having that extra flexibility to go back, and if someone said something really loud and it peaked and you want to use it, I can always go back and I still have extra tracks. Or I have the bride and groom's mic fed straight into here from the Rode Wireless Pros. Something else that's going to be a huge upgrade to you guys that the mirrorless cameras do not have, that the C70 does have, is waveform. Things like waveform and false color. It really helps you set your exposure really well. These mirrorless cameras, they have the histogram, and at the bottom they have the stops of light that you're getting, so you can kind of get your exposure right with those tools. For the most part, they're not great, they're not perfect. Having the waveform on the C70 and the false colors pretty much allows you to perfect your exposure when needed. And again, I have them both set on buttons right in the C70. So it's nice to have those. Again, it's one of those things when we're shooting weddings, we're running and gunning so much, we don't have time to set up and make sure the lighting's perfect. So you have to use what's inside of here to do what you can. So having those extra little features is really, really nice. So the autofocus between these two is fairly comparable. I say the C80 has the best autofocus between these 3. The C70's autofocus is okay. I actually think that the R6 Mark II has better continuous autofocus. I think it catches faces and keeps up with them a lot better, or fast moving subjects. I think it actually does better. I don't know if it's the full frame or what it is. I know this has the same sensor as the R3. So between the two, I really can't give a win for the autofocus to the C70. I think it has to go to the R5 and the R6 Mark II. The R6, no. The C70's got a better autofocus than the R6. I have a couple of R6s, so trust me, I know. If autofocus is really your absolute main concern, and you put an RF glass on it and you got a lot of movement, you know, this might be your best bet. One other thing to add that is a big deal to me that I didn't think I would care so much about when I got the C70 a while back was having shutter angle. So if I go and change the frame rate from 60 frames to 24 frames or whatever I'm changing it to, I never, ever, ever have to go and change the shutter speed. In a mirrorless camera, I'd have to go in here, change my frame rate, and then change my, once in a while, it's very rare, but once in a while I'd forget to change my shutter speed as well. You know, I'd either leave it too high or too low, and usually catch it pretty fast. I've never had any disasters, knock on wood. But having shutter angle inside the C70 is nice because it's pretty much on autopilot for shutter, and you never have to adjust it. You set it to 180 degrees, and unless you're doing some type of stylized shot or you want something specific, you just leave it there the entire time, and it's not something you ever have to touch. So if you're one of those people that like to change your frame rate throughout the day, it makes it a lot quicker to be able to do that. A point I will give to the mirrorless cameras is for the in-body image stabilization, especially paired with the RF glass that has image stabilization built into the lenses. This camera, you can pretty much shoot things handheld and make it look like a gimbal. The stabilization is that good when you have some RF glass with stabilization on it. It is absolutely fantastic, and it gives you very, very, very steady shots. They're non-comparable. The C70's digital stabilization is not good. I have a video of the C70 versus the C80. The C80 is highly improved on the digital stabilization. This is only good when I'm standing completely still, handheld, and just trying to get that completely still shot. So I'll put that on. Otherwise, if you're moving with it or doing anything with that digital stabilization in the body, it's not great. So I only shoot this handheld. I have thousands of hours of practice with it, and it's still not great. So this always gets a win once in a while if I'm doing details at a wedding and, you know, I can light it. I have time to light it decently. I will just grab one of these R6s and do my detail shots just to get them a little bit more smooth. Battery life. Anyone who uses these mirrorless cameras and shoots video, battery life sucks. They are horrible. I will go through, when I was shooting these R6s as my main cam, I was going through the Canon batteries, 8 or 9 of them per wedding day, at least, at minimum, in my main camera. That doesn't even include my tripod cameras or anything else. I was ripping through them. So I moved to a V-mount on the back of the camera for a little while, and it just was very cumbersome. I did not like the V-mount on the back of it. It was just too much, too many wires all over the place and things, and it was just kind of a pain in the ass more than anything. So back to the little batteries, but constantly switching them. So I always had a pocket full of batteries. So let me tell you, 100% worth it for the C70, the batteries it uses for those BPA 30 and 60. On a wedding day, I use the BPA 30s. I think I'll use probably 2.5 batteries at most. If I'm using a BPA 60, that almost gets me through an entire wedding day just for the one battery. The battery life on these cameras, the C70 and the C80 with the BPA batteries, doesn't even compare. Okay, so hopefully this video wasn't too long. In a nutshell, this is going to be the absolute best time to buy a C70 if you're still using mirrorless. Whether you're on a gimbal, handheld, anything, it's definitely worth it. Like I said, on a gimbal, it's not, the C70 is a little bit heavier, and it's kind of a pain sometimes to put on a gimbal. I still use it on a gimbal all the time when needed. So, but don't let that discourage you. You know, maybe just, you know, pump some weights and you'll be okay. But now's the best time to buy, I think. The C80 just came out a couple of 2 months ago, I think. I've had it for 2 months. I got it pretty much the day it was released. Right now, I think is going to be the cheapest for the C70s because so many people are getting their C80s now and buying them, seeing reviews, seeing how good it is, and selling their C70 for a C80. So I think in 6 to 9 to 12 months from now, I don't think they're going to get any cheaper. I think in 2 years they'll get a little bit cheaper, but if you want to wait that long, sure. The C80 by then will probably come down in price too. But now I think is the best time to buy. And if I was in the market for a C70, I would have snatched a couple up by now. I know there's 100 videos here on YouTube about the C70 being better than, you know, XYZ camera, especially compared to mirrorless cameras. But on a wedding day, I'm telling you, just my experience, this is the best investment I've made for pieces of gear. I mean, I have a lot of pieces of gear here laying around that I could tell you made it worth the price. But the C70 was just absolutely night and day from any other piece of gear that I've ever used. And I can't say enough good things about it. And just because the C80 came out doesn't mean the C70 is no good anymore. It's obsolete. I think that camera is going to continue to be one of the best for another 5 to 10 years before they come out with something else that just makes it completely obsolete. Plus, something to think about too is when I'm looking for second shooters, there's very few people in my area, me and maybe 2 other people that shoot on a C70 or C80. When I'm looking for second shooters, I really, really love to have someone come that has a C70. So it's maybe another thing that can help you get jobs as well. I know I've gotten a few second shooting jobs that paid pretty well just because I had a C70 and a C80. So something else to think about. It's going to eventually pay itself off just based on, you know, those kind of things. So last time, I'm here to encourage you to spend money you don't have on gear that you don't need, but I promise you it'll be worth it.